wondered why some cyclists seem to improve much faster than others with seemingly less effort? You might think it's all about high-tech gear, but it's actually much simpler. And today I'll unveil a technique that merges intuitive understanding of your body with a scientifically backed tool. Intrigued? I have some easy to follow steps to adapt your training to this idea at the end of the video, but first let's dive into the training basics that every cyclist should know. You might think training is all about power or distance, but it's really about the right response. Think about it like a battery. With training, you use some energy up and then you rest and recharge, and this boosts your ability to do more next time. In broad terms, we can think of this process as dose response. And the tricky part of training is finding the right dose response for you. Coaches, and I will admit to this, once believed in pushing athletes hard, to their limits in fact. The goal was to do a lot before breaking down. But now we focus on efficiency. We aim for the least work needed for improvement. It's all about doing just enough, not more. And this all depends not on the external load as much as on the degree of how hard your body works, or the internal load. I think about external load as stress and how we respond, the internal load, as strain. Borrowing strain from physics and engineering, it describes how materials deform under stress. Imagine a golf ball being hit. That's how stress works on your body. Sometimes it may even feel like this. And when you ride, it's not just about the ride stress or how hard you work, it's more about the strain, how your body feels this effort. While riding, we measure effort with power in watts, we measure strain with your heart rate in beats per minute, but there's more. After you ride, we look at this strain and how it affects you, and this is fatigue. And understanding this helps you plan your training and the next session. So how do we measure this? Well, I've uncovered a validated solution that has been around for 30 years. It's simple and it requires no technology, but before we get into this instrument, let's take a detour to understand why we would even worry about monitoring fatigue in the first place. Meet John, a 50-plus cyclist juggling work and family. His struggle? Constant fatigue. So let's see how he transformed his training by understanding fatigue. I've coached John on and off for the past 3 years, and when he came to me, his two main goals were his Tuesday night group ride and a Saturday morning group ride. And these were rides that were so hard that he was too fatigued to do any other rides on any other days, leaving him stuck in this endless loop of ride, feel tired, also known as endurance training hell. Can you relate to this situation? Do you ever feel like you're training hard but never making any progress? You might be stuck in the same loop. The solution for John? Well, we came up with what might be the world's simplest training strategy ever. I mean, we didn't even write down a training plan. We just worked over Facebook Messenger. We followed the strategy and the results were amazing. Higher threshold, hitting other power PBs, more fun. Not only that, he now has a better understanding of when to push and when to hold back. Since getting these results with John, there's always been one thing on my mind. Could this simple approach help other cyclists too? So I've put some time into refining the ideas so that you can also try it out. But there's an issue. I can't work with all of you one-to-one, so I needed to come up with a set of instructions that you can follow that don't overwhelm you, that works even if you've never done any structured training before, and keeps you accountable and gets you the results you want. How hard can that be? Here's the interesting part. Learning to read our body's fatigue signals. It's like having an internal coach telling us when to push and when to ease up. And the goal being to find the right training load and then hope for adaptation. But how do we know what the right training load is? Well, it all comes down to your response to training and listening to your body. The key here isn't just to rely on how you feel, but to support it with solid data. And this way you get the best of both worlds, your instinct and proven science. John, I was triangulating his resting heart rate, written feedback, and his training stress balance to get an idea of his fatigue levels. We are going to use a much simpler instrument, but the aim of each is the same, to push, but don't go over the edge. Think of the edge as the point where riding your bike feels too much, where you don't even want to ride. And there's a tool to help to see this, the overtraining continuum. Fry, Morton, and Keese developed it in 1991, and while overtraining theories can be debated, this tool is really helpful. It's a useful way to visualize your fatigue at any one moment. When John started with me, he was sitting here, in this non-functional part of overreaching. Non-functional is where the nightmares of endurance training occur, where you're putting in the effort without seeing any progress. This not only affects you physically, but also mentally, And this, as in John's case, can go on for weeks, and it takes weeks to recover from, or worse, if you don't do anything about it, it goes to overtraining here, and it's very difficult to recover from. The overtraining syndrome can mark the end of a season or even a career. So where do you want to be on this continuum? A review from 2020 by Philip Bellinger concluded that there does not seem to be evidence to suggest that functional overreaching is necessary to induce performance enhancements in trained endurance athletes, mainly because studies show that the performance enhancement from functional overreaching is not greater than of non-overreached athletes who increase training load without experiencing performance decrement. So my conclusion is that you want to remain at the top end of the fatigue range on any given day. That's somewhere in this range, and this gives you the best chance to produce the best response. And fatigue may take 24 to 48 hours to recover from at worst. Now that we understand the why, let's dive into how you can stick in this fatigue range. This includes learning the signals of fatigue across the overtraining continuum. I have a significantly validated way to help you with this, but know this up front. This is a process, and there is no objective way to measure it perfectly. So learning the difference comes through making mistakes and pushing too hard through it. So definitely go easy on yourself when you get it wrong, because you will. To capture how you're feeling and monitor over time when you might be getting too close to the edge, what do you use now? Is it scientifically validated? Is it heart rate? Nope. HRV? Maybe. Body weight? Nope. Other readiness metrics? Nope. Studies show mixed results on traditional metrics like heart rate or body weight. But here's a twist. Your own perception of effort and fatigue might be the most reliable gauge. Enter the concept of listening to your body, not just your heart. It means using self-reported measures which help identify your fatigue level. Now, technology has come a long way. And this might be controversial to say, but I don't believe that we've moved beyond 1990 when Dr. Brent Rushall of San Diego University developed a monitoring instrument called the Daily Analysis of Life's Demands for Athletes, or DALDA questionnaire. DALDA lists life stresses and symptoms where athletes rate their state compared to normal. It's a simple yet powerful tool to understand your training response. And while technology in sports is advancing, it hasn't outpaced the importance of subjective measures. But by monitoring how you feel daily, you can tailor your training to match your body's readiness and avoid overtraining and optimizing performance. Does it work? Well, there was a solid study done to look at fatigue in cyclists to work out if they could tell if it was from recent training sessions or from overreaching for a longer period. They found that it is possible using the DALDA questionnaire. You can see here the daily scores oscillating because of the fatigue from isolated training sessions, but then in this particular investigation, it took 3 to 7 days of intensified training before overreaching developed. This is clearly shown in the gray area here. The recommendation then became if scores remain elevated for 4 consecutive days, a rest period should occur. To use it in your training routine, here are the steps. I've got a Google spreadsheet version available in the description where you simply click through and then tally up results. Complete the questionnaire. We are only concerned with the worse than normal score. Add up these and then plot them on this chart. You are starting with a normal 2-week training period and recording every day. This will establish the range deemed to be the window of training response. This is the range that you train in, and it represents manageable fatigue. If training loads are primarily of low intensity, then every other day should be satisfactory when recording. If training loads are heavy, then daily analysis is recommended. The aim of training should be to provide training stress, which will result in you reporting the number of negative symptoms which will fall in the window. And this is your fatigue level on the fatigue continuum. Rushall suggests that if a data point from the day's analysis is higher than the values included in the window, then it could be interpreted that the previous session load was too hard. But my take comes down to this. If scores remain elevated for 4 consecutive days, a period of rest should occur. This means that you're simply resting under a wait and see approach. As I mentioned earlier, you really only want to ever be 24 to 48 hours away from fully recovering. So at these times, it's important to listen to your body and try try and get an extra hour or two of sleep if possible. You will know when you're ready again, when your scores return to your window. Now, the next question that arises after this is, how do I make up for a missed workout or more? And the answer to this depends on where you are currently in your training plan. When adjusting your training plan, consider the following guidelines. As we wrap up this journey into the art of data-driven self-awareness, I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself 6 months from now, riding smoother, faster, and with more confidence than ever before. This isn't just a dream, it's a very achievable reality. How? By embracing the principles we've explored together. This video has given you a glimpse into a world where training is more than just numbers and routines. It's a symphony of listening to your body, understanding its signals, and responding with intelligence. You've seen how John transformed his cycling experience, not by pushing harder, but by training smarter. Now it's your turn. Imagine being able to fine-tune your training to your body's unique rhythms, sidestepping the frustration of overtraining and underperformance. And think about the feeling of hitting new personal bests, not because you guessed your way there, but because you had the insights and the tools to guide you. But here's the catch. It all starts with a single step. Are you curious to see how these strategies can reshape your cycling experience? Are you ready to challenge the conventional wisdom and train in a way that's tailored just for you? The path is laid out. All you need to do is take your first pedal stroke.